What if we could solve the $1.3 trillion student debt crisis by giving parents a simple yes or no question? I want to tell you about a woman that's been the rallying call for me to get Savvy to market. Her name is Abby. She's a single parent with an adopted daughter in the 2nd grade at a private K-12 institution. The only reason she can afford to send her daughter there is she actually works at this institution and gets financial aid because of that. So I was talking to Abby about college savings, and she said, you know, I should be saving, but I'm not. And I kind of pushed back a little bit. I said, well, why is it even important to save? And she looked at me and she said, because my daughter is my everything. And I can't limit her options for college because of my financial choices. And I don't want to saddle her with so much debt coming out of college that it slows down her life afterwards. Then she told me about a coworker of hers that I'd be talking to afterwards. She said, you know, she's married to an investment banker. They have a financial advisor and they have this all figured out already. I've had the 529 paperwork sitting at home for years, and I don't know how I'm expected to work my way through it alone. And she said, if you tell me that I need to save $2,000 a month to send my child to the college that she wants to go to, I'll figure out a way to make it work. I've had this conversation so many times with so many parents that it's apparent to me that the current college savings tools, namely the 529 plan, is inaccessible to the parents that need them most. And here's why. Abby is forced to sort through over 1,000 options before finding one that works for her. And some of the options are, I'm going to have to read this because I can't remember it, the Tennessee Prime Cap Odyssey Aggressive Growth Fund. Now, there's no way in heck that Abby's going to look at that and know what that actually means. And so the consequence is that 43% of parents are not saving, and for those that are, there's over $200 billion in assets currently reserved for college that are in checking and deposit accounts. And that's way more than the 529 accounts. The result of that is that the average parent is on track to save 1 year's worth of college at an in-state university, even though they could fully fund that amount with as much as they spend dining out each month. I'm creating Savvy, a consumer-oriented alternative to the 529 plan that incorporates simplicity throughout the model to package college savings in a way that's accessible to the parents that need it most. And to show you how important simplicity is, consider this study where a workplace savings program tripled their participation merely by eliminating options and turning it into a yes or no question. I'm doing the same with Savvy so parents can simply decide to say yes to start saving. When they do, they'll be able to easily set up a custodial savings account in minutes from their mobile phone, and the appropriate target date fund will already be selected for them. Friends and family will be able to easily contribute to that account through person-to-person payments. And parents will always know how much they're on track to save. Based on their, I'll put that down, based on their past and future monthly contributions. And so Savvy's set up the same as a 529 plan is, where it earns revenue by charging a % of assets under management. I'm just going to go without the slides. The target date fund is created and managed by a third party like Charles Schwab, and then a third party broker actually houses the client's assets and makes trades for them. So when you compare the options available to parents, you have generally savings accounts, although those don't have enough returns for parents. If a parent were to fully fund a 4-year degree with a normal account, they would have to save 1.5 years more of college with a savings account. So it just doesn't have enough returns. 529 account, the problem with that, not only is it not accessible, but parents actually don't like the lack of flexibility with it, where you can save for 18 years and your child gets a scholarship, and then you have to take a penalty to withdraw those funds. But I want to kind of draw your attention back to the real problem I'm solving here is that accessibility, and I want to do that with a metaphor. So if you imagine that the 529 account, maybe are we back going here? Okay. If you imagine that the 529 account is a spring in the middle of the desert, the average parent may try to make it there, but they're going to pass out on the way. More likely, they're going to look at this journey and say, I want no part of that. This is way beyond my skill level. Best case scenario is they have a financial advisor with a map guiding them to that spring in the middle of the desert. What I'm doing is I'm bottling water and putting it in the convenience store so every parent can have access to it. So the target demographic is parents with household income between $75,000 and $200,000, which is within a range of parents that can save, but don't necessarily have enough accumulated assets to warrant a financial advisor helping them make a decision. Also, the key component of this is they're financially uninterested. These parents don't want to know what the 10-year return is on the stock market. They just want the problem done so they can concentrate on saving. In this demographic, there's those $200 billion of assets in the deposit accounts that I spoke about earlier, the 37% of parents that intend to save but aren't yet. So that comes out to a $2.5 billion annual revenue opportunity. The go-to-market strategy is first to leverage my current contacts with independent schools and to use that channel and also use PR from several sources to gain that credibility. Afterwards, we'll expand to more scalable channels such as digital baby registries and the typical search and social media channels. But most importantly, in all of these channels, our key differentiator is going to be word-of-mouth referrals. So this is how the 529 plan is currently spread already. Somebody has a brother that told them to go into it, or somebody's brother's financial advisor told them to. So we're going to leverage that channel by making it easy to refer to your contact list with one button in the app, but also by giving people a reduction in their management fees so they have an incentive to spread this to their friends in the way they're already doing so. Now in the independent school channel, you have parents coming in and their children are going to college. That's why they're getting them into independent schools. Also, the parents are more involved in their children's education. And while their child is in school, they actually have to play a little bit of catch-up in saving relative to somebody that just has a child, which helps our early revenue generation. Also, the schools themselves take a holistic approach to teaching their students, where they not only want their students to do well in school, but they want them to have good family lives and have good careers in college afterwards. Also, these schools rely on a lot of donations, and so a revenue share with Savvy is a way to have them promote this tool to their parents, and also doing so will help Savvy establish its credibility that it can use going forward. In the digital baby registry channel, they're tech-savvy parents. That's definitely our target demographic, and there's actually a way to establish a two-way relationship where we're sending our clients to their baby registry in the future. In the broad social and search channels, there's a couple important characteristics. One is that there's really no competitors for these types of parents. So there's 30% awareness of 529 plans right now, and that's because states don't excel at marketing to consumers. Also, it's a complex topic that it's hard for you to share, and that's that word of mouth channel. That's number one. The current 529 plans don't really get to leverage that right now. So based on comparable companies, I estimate our acquisition cost to be $50. Which implies a break-even per customer at a little over 1 year. As a company as a whole will break even with fully scaled fixed costs at 100 million assets under management, which is a little over 8,000 clients. So I'm Jeffrey Hull, I'm founder and CEO of Savvy Financial. I'm currently completing my MBA degree. I'm also on track to get my Series 65 certification in next month. And I've studied this problem from the consumer perspective of why people don't save and devoured all the research, and I think I have some compelling results with that. So I'm raising $400,000 to register with the SEC, to build out an MVP, to make key hires, and to launch into the market, and also to contract with a broker. By turning the college savings question into a simple yes or no question for parents, they can finally leave the financial decisions to the professionals and concentrate on the only question they ever really cared about in the first place. How much do I have to save each month to give my child the college experience they deserve? Thank you.
So no, just logically thinking about it, I like the idea of giving the ease of someone. I think everyone decides. I can remember when we had our first child, exactly. You know, we say, okay, we're going to set up a fund to do that. I think probably one of the challenges through that is parents from when they have a young child to when they become college age experiences their own ups and downs through that time. So the thought of it is to do it, and they may do it for 2-3 years, and then their financial position may change, and they don't continue it. Have you thought about that? How do you solve that? I mean, obviously that's just a personal cash flow thing, but sure. I would assume you may need twice as many customers as you think, because I think 50% of them are going to go silent for a number of years or a certain amount of months each year?
Yeah. So I have several comments on that. One is that from what I've tested some other features that, well, I won't get into that. When you show people exactly where they're on track to save, they can make decisions a lot better than they normally would. Normally, you're like, I'm a little cash flow constrained, but maybe you're still dining out or whatever, but you're like, what's another $10? It doesn't matter. What's another $20? It doesn't matter. And they can kind of go through that cycle and this ambiguous, like, what is the effect on my college savings? They never can tie those two together. So if you could show them, here's what you're doing, and if you're delaying this for this long, here's the effect over here, then they can make that decision of what's more important, the stuff I'm spending money on or this over here. And I would argue that right now they can't make that decision. Also, having it easy for parents, friends, and family to contribute also gives them a way to still add a little bit more in there, even when they can't personally do that. But the key is a lot parents aren't necessarily struggling, the ones I've spoken to, struggling to make these payments. The big problem is they're struggling to start, and they're starting when their child is 12 and not when they're 6. And you can make a big difference if you could show them how much smaller this payment is when they're 6 or 0, just born, than it is here, and so they can find a way to contribute that $300 a month or whatever it takes.
I would be, as someone who would use the plan, I would need to understand a little bit more on the return on my investment, on the money, and understanding, is an average return 2% or 5% a year on the money I'm putting in? Because, believe it or not, they're probably, if they do this, they're going to put the money in, and they're not going to look at the returns for years because it's so small. But I don't want to one day look at it and say, gee, my returns on this have been, are you going to keep them aware of what the returns are on an annual basis?
The parents that I've spoken to, and one thing to keep in the backdrop is they are uninterested in, I won't say completely uninterested, but they're not sitting here counting their returns and all of that. What they're really worried about is, as a parent, how can I feel comfortable that I'm doing what I need to do for my child? And so there's a part that they can control. It's how much they contribute. And so the parents that I've spoken to, that's what they care about. They don't care about little differences in taxes or which return gets more. It's like, if I do this, will I get the result I want? If the answer is yes, then I don't care about how this fund compares to a different fund. And that's different if, I'm not sure if you have a financial background, but people with financial backgrounds, that's blasphemy. They don't understand that. But there's a large swath of parents that do not care what fund it is and what return it is. They only care about what they're deciding. How do I get money out of my pocket into the fund to be the parent that I want to be?
Yeah, and the other thing I think you'll need to consider is it's a new world now with the amount of fraud and the amount of concerns. So wherever I put my money, I want to make certain that I'm pretty comfortable. So there's going to be a selling period of confidence that you have to build in them that's there. And kind of compare it to spiritual giving. Think about how many people truly give if they go to church every Sunday and their intent, and that's the same thing with college. You have good idea to do it, and then one day you wake up and say, well, gosh, I haven't given in, 12 months.
Yeah.
It's something I think you'll have to figure out, that I don't know if the giving is consistent as is what the intent would be.
Thank you.
I thought you did a great job presenting. Thank you. And
Appreciate that.
I would tell you the area, I have one area of concern is it's the acquisition strategy on the consumers. I see a lot of web linkage. I think the linkage to baby.com and the registry stuff is good. It's certainly a starting point when you're thinking about having children. But I think that for everybody that even understands your concept, how many are going to go in, and how broad you've got to advertise your message in order to get your base up to the level that you need it to. I also have the concerns about short funding, things like that. I know as a parent, I had ebbs and flows in my life, and I funded and unfunded and started and stopped. I think you're going to have a broader, I see a need for a broader consumer strategy, a broader acquisition strategy. Also, with that with the broadness of it, I also think there's a financial cost to making it broader as well. I like the concept. I'm concerned about the amount of money in the strategy against the consumer.
Sure. So that's definitely stuff that remains to be tested out. I think, can you explain just briefly what you mean by broader, as far as like?
I think you need a more robust spend and marketing campaign to go after the initial user.
Mm-hmm. And so the goal is to leverage some of these channels that aren't cash channels, if you will, that aren't the broad going after everybody, blanketing, buying up all the search terms. Just try to start with some of these that are smaller. And the idea is not that these smaller ones are going to support the business and are going to have as many customers as what I want, but to start there, establish that trust, show these people that this is something simple that they can easily understand, and also to leverage this channel that they're already using. So when talking to parents, like I said, that's their big channels. That's how everybody's in a 529 plan right now. Someone told them to. Nobody saw it advertised and then went and researched it and then found the one that they want. It's really just like my brother told me this was the one I should do. Thank you. The decision's made. Now I can move on with my life. And so I'm really going to try to target that channel first before going to these really broad channels, and to see if in fact, I think it remains to be tested, if in fact using those channels in the schools and leveraging referrals, if that spreads quick enough. Because it's already the channel they're using, and that's a cashless per acquisition channel. And to test that out and see what happens, and then see if that doesn't work, how do we adjust the strategy going forward. But it's definitely the main concern is customer acquisition, is the success or failure of this company.
I agree. Thank you.
I think Jim and David have great points. With the limited time left, just great job. I have 4 kids, 2 in college, 2 in high school, so I totally get it. I think you're right on a lot of the front side of it in terms of the decision making.
Right.
You mentioned broker-dealer affiliations and things like that. Maybe, I don't know if you can expand on that, or with the time that we have left, just I think there is something to the other side of the equation with respect to what you've heard so far from others and the trust factor, whether perceived or otherwise. So whether it's an alliance or a joint venture or something that goes into it, particularly with the lower demographic perhaps, or that's an important part, I think.
Yeah. Was that a question or a comment? The broker-dealer is just somebody that I would use to hold the client's assets, stuff like that. The one that I'm particularly going to use is Apex, which is not a household name. But you can leverage the household names of Securities Exchange Commission when you register, the household names of the fund that you're using, Charles Schwab or Fidelity, and also going through those independent school channels. That's a very trustworthy source that gives you kind of a validation. So that's how I'm hoping to overcome that. And then also make it simple. That's trustworthy when it's simple. I understand if I say this, I get that.
The only thing I would add is what you can do to encourage repeat usage, whether it be, we've talked about the idea that parents aren't necessarily concerned about the return. I think parents are certainly concerned about not losing their money, so they'd like to see that number go up, and the amount of which I think is less relevant. But I would agree with you that folks are probably less concerned about that so long as it is improving.
Yeah.
But I think there are opportunities to encourage sort of stickiness around content, education. So what is the college landscape today? How is it changing? What's it likely to be 10 years from now? I think there probably needs to be an equal push on I'd call them older kids, as there would be with sort of infants and newborns. So I think, as a parent, I think it was vitally important when the kids were born, and it was not so important for the next 5 years. And then all of a sudden, it was you woke up one morning and said the kids are going to school in another 5 years. So I would say an equal amount of attention needs to be paid to kids throughout sort of the life cycle.
Totally. Yeah.
But it's great. I mean, there's a lot here. I think if this were to be something like the Mint for college education, I think there's something there. So.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. All right. Thank you, guys.